For this one, you need to make sure that both pieces are cut to 41 inches. They should both be the exact same length. First, you lay down the smaller piece of fabric. Make sure if you have a piece of fabric like this that has a right side and a wrong side, that it's right side up. You want the pretty side facing the ceiling. Next, line up the big piece of fabric with your small piece of fabric. Line up the top sides and then pin. The whole way down, our hands width apart. Make sure you pin correctly. The heads of the pin should be sticking out from the side of the fabric. If this is not done properly, the next step will be very hard to do. Make sure that both edges of the fabric match up exactly. Starting from the edge that does not have the pins in it, fold your fabric over and begin to roll towards the side with the pins. Continue rolling until you get past the small piece of fabric. Taking the small piece of fabric, grab the bottom and flip it over the top. From here, all three pieces of fabric should be lined up. Remove one pin at a time and repin, continuing to line up all three layers as you go down the tube. Be sure that you do not pin the rolled up piece inside of these three pieces, as if you do, you will most likely have to start over. This is the reason this is a hot dog pillowcase. This is like the hot dog, this is like the bun. Make sure you do not pin your hot dog into the bun. Continue pinning until you have the entire project pinned, making sure that you can see all three layers the entire way down, nothing sticking out too far. If you feel carefully down the entire project, none of the rolled up piece is inside. This is what it would look like if you pinned the rolled part into the top. From here, we are going to sew up 5/8. Don't forget to backstitch. And take the pins out as you go. If done correctly, you should have just 3 layers of fabric in your seam allowance. And it should all be at 5/8 of an inch. Now it's time to flip it inside out. Just like we flipped the loops inside out, fold just the black part over the edge. Holding on to the folded part, grab onto the inside as well and pull. Continue pulling until the entire inside is on the outside. Should completely unroll like so. If a part gets stuck to your small piece of fabric, you sewed the hot dog into the bun. Now we are going to iron. We are ironing from the big piece of fabric to the small piece of fabric in one swift motion. You're pressing hard as you go. What we're trying to get rid of is any type of fold here. So as you can see now, it is extremely smooth. However, the side I have not done yet has folds in it. You can get your finger underneath that part. Make sure you do front and back. When doing one side, it can create folds on the other side. In the next step, we are folding the bag in half. Both sides of the top should be the same, therefore it doesn't matter which way we fold it, which sides are together, as long as we're matching up the top pieces and the bottom pieces. From here, we are going to pin this side and the bottom, both open sides, not the folded edge or the top where the pillow would go. I suggest starting with this top part, that way you can get your seams to be lined up that the black ends where the black ends on the other side. Then, as you work your way down the side, try to line up these seams as best as possible. And continue. The two sides that we just pinned will now be sewed at 3/8. I repeat, 3/8. If you sew this at 5/8, the next step will not work. 3/8, which is just a little bit past the edge of that presser foot, almost 1/4 of an inch. Again, we're back stitching and we're removing pins. When I get to this first corner, I'm going to pivot, do the other side, and back stitch again. Suggestion: if you have a few areas like this that are over 3/8 of an inch, go ahead and take shears and just trim those edges off. Another suggestion: after getting this step checked, you can cut the corner off. Do not cut through the stitching, but this reduces how much fabric is in the corner. The next step is to turn your pillowcase inside out. From here, we're going to use the pressing ham. This is a pressing ham. You can also use a seam roll if there aren't any more pressing hams available, but it just goes inside your pillowcase. On this seam that we just sewed, you're going to stretch it out over the pressing ham and press. And then we're going to move it down. You're going to complete both seams. What I like to do is to kind of pull on my fabric as I kind of iron and press the material. The corner is extremely hard to get, so get as close as you can. Try your best in the corner. Both sides. If this is not done properly, the next step will be extremely difficult. From here, we are going to pin one last time. So right there, you should be able to see that seam that you press nicely with your pressing ham. From here, we want to kind of pinch the seam so that it's all the way down the center of our stitching. And pin just like normal. We just want to make sure that our seam is over here. We want to avoid areas that were not pressed at all or incorrectly. We'll want to kind of fold. We don't want any folds in our pinning. We want a nice flat seam. Nothing like that where you can stick your finger in it. Again, make sure we pin both of the edges that we just sewed, the one side and the bottom. From here, we're going to sew at 5/8. Once again, it's got to be bigger than the last time. So if you accidentally sewed at 4/8 last time, I might try 6/8. It has to be bigger. There has to be more space out here in order for this to work. Backstitch and remove pins once again. After completing that last seam at 5/8 of an inch, we're going to turn our pillowcase inside out. This is the last and final step, but in order to check if it is correct or not, there's one last thing. This is what a nice seam should look like. However, if you did not sew at the correct measurements, you will have something like this, where the inside of the fabric is sticking out. You do not want that. If that is the case, you will have to trim this off, flip it back inside out, and sew again just a little further out. Because this is the outside of your pillowcase, right? It creates a nice seam on the inside so it doesn't give way to any wear or tear. There's no raw edges. Once your pillowcase is done, make sure it is pressed nice and neat, and grab a reflection sheet off the card in the front of the room.